You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Good morning. It is 7:06. It's a Monday morning, June 2nd, 2025. Yeah, we flipped the page on the calendar. If you missed it, welcome. Happy June. June Dairy Month, Pride Month, summer's here. You can tell because of all the smoke. Canada is on fire again. So that fits into part of today's weather outlook as well. Dr. Kristen Lyerly is with us. Selena Heller here as well. Brittany Merlot a little bit under the weather here, but we do.
She's under the weather.
Oh.
That's funny.
That was way more funny than that deserved to be. But yes, sunny, breezy, and hot was what she put down for us. Mainly mid-80s, pushing 90 today, with a south-southwest wind at 10 to 20. Increasing clouds and mild tonight. A good chance of showers late in the northwestern half of the state. Low to mid-60s tonight with a southwest wind around 10. I don't know if anybody saw much for Northern Lights last night. We were supposed to get some kind of a big Northern Lights show, but again, that Canadian wildfire smoke, I mean, it is really pronounced. I mean, especially with that setting sun, was such an easy to see big old round ball because the smoke was just so thick. You could just tell we flew in last night. As soon as we got off the plane, you could smell it, in the air out there, Selena.
Yes, we were looking at that sun the other. I said, Emery, don't quit looking. And she's like, well, you can really see it because there's just this bright orange. I'm like, well, stop looking at it. That was last night. It was so orange.
I can't stop looking.
Yeah,
it does. It does have kind of a Star Wars, feel to it, like you're seeing the suns up in the sky there. But yeah. But that also, by the way, the serious note of that is if you or somebody you love has any respiratory issues, it's not good out there. Keep the windows closed, put the AC on, and take care of yourself. Good morning from Tigerton. Rob writes, smoky skies and 56 degrees. I had 3 mowing jobs over the weekend. I did my weekend volunteering job watering the flowers for Tigerton Main Street. He says Tigerton is the smallest community on the Wisconsin Main Street program, which is really neat. He says this week road work got underway along Highway 29 in western Marathon County. We appreciate all of the updates there on the road work. There's a lot of it going on. 53 here up in Chippewa County. A lot of work taking place up there. And so everybody just, use caution when you're out there on the roadways. Selena, hold. I'm going to talk to you about what Senator Baldwin did in the Chippewa Valley here recently. And you also did a story for our counterparts in Iowa from Courier Newsroom about we were just talking about misinformation from Robert Kennedy Jr. Well, some of the information that they have to take in classes in Iowa are based on false information that Dr. Lyerly knows all about. So we're going to talk to both Kristen and Selena about these things. But first, I almost forgot. It's time for Civic Media's Scotty Summer Text to Win contest done statewide across the network. 4 times a day, you can win either $100 cash or a pair of Milwaukee Brewers club level tickets. Each entry gives you a chance at one of the grand prizes. That would be a Wisconsin vacation in Baraboo at the Ringling House Bed and Breakfast, or the Door County White Lace Inn with some gas money to get you there. Now, each time we do this, there's a different keyword that you need to text to us through the Civic Media app before the end of each hour. So if you don't have the app, go download it in the usual places like Apple or Google. Go to one of the stations on the app and use the text button to send us the keyword. So this hour, the prize is $100, and the keyword to text us is new, N-E-W. So just get over to the Civic Media app, text the word new, be in the running for this hour's prize of $100. And again, every entry puts you in the running for one of the grand prizes, a Wisconsin Dells vacation in Baraboo at the Ringling House Bed and Breakfast or the Door County White Lace Inn. A little gas money to get there. So again, text NEW, N-E-W. And finally, Rob concludes from Tigertown, I hope my Civic Media people all have a super day. I'm really hooked on Civic Media for all the latest news and information. We appreciate that so much. Let's start, Selena, if you don't mind, with the story out of Iowa while we've got Kristen here. The headline out of Iowa Starting Line is Iowa students will have to watch an inaccurate video thanks to Republican lawmakers. The lead here that Selena writes, a pregnancy education bill is awaiting Governor Kim Reynolds' signature. If signed, it will require students in grades 5 to 12 to view a fetal development video as part of their human growth and development instruction. And the law prohibits any educational material created by medical institutions like the Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, the University of Iowa Hospital and Clinics, and along with organizations like Planned Parenthood. I mean, that's just for starters of what's all in this bill, Selena. So what is this about the inaccurate video that comes with this law?
So it doesn't name a specific video, but it's modeled after a video. It's called Meet Baby Olivia, which was produced by an anti-abortion group. So that's kind of where it stems from. And this video is kind of out in a lot of places, but it misrepresents gestational age, makes false claims about viability, and uses narration that kind of emotionally manipulates the viewers. And so people say, don't use the kids as kind of political pawns. So that's the kind of whole idea. So it could go into effect July 1st if it is signed. So next school year.
How does that work out, Dr. Lyerly, when students are watching development or human development videos that are not accurate?
This is already a law in North Dakota and I think Tennessee. These are cartoons that show this very watered down, perfect version. It's a fantasy version of what life in the womb might be like. There are no abruptions in there. There are no amniotic bands. There are no fibroids. The placenta is normal. It's so wrong and it's so inaccurate. And the fact that they won't allow real evidence and information from the University of Iowa, that is your flagship university. Let those people create your human growth and development video. Don't use propaganda, again, propaganda from an outside group with an agenda intended to control and manipulate young people.
It's just, it is, again, Orwellian almost, how the instruction refers to human development rather than fetal development. It's called a womb instead of a uterus. There is a high quality rendering, animation, or image that depicts the humanity of the unborn child. In other words, again, not looking like a real medical condition, but like you said, cartoonish is essentially what this is.
Fetuses aren't little humans that are, they're different, they're evolving, they're growing, and lots of things happen inside the womb, inside the uterus, that are not represented here. So this is fictional. It is inaccurate, and people base their healthcare decisions on this kind of information. It's wrong. It's just wrong.
Selena, you quote Maisie Stillwell, Director of Public Affairs for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Iowa, that calls it despicable and shameless. Our students deserve to be taught curriculum that is bound in facts so that they're equipped with the necessary tools to make informed decisions about their lives and their futures.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And they even kind of some things went to doctors and said, specifically, what is wrong with this? And so they even have that information, just specifically what is wrong about this. And still it has proceeded. So,
and
well, they don't actually care, because I don't know if you heard what Joni Ernst said over the weekend, but we're all going to die. So why does it matter?
Doubled down on
it. Happening? Yes. What is happening in Iowa with these women who are leaders, their governor, their U.S. senator, who are just completely discounting the lives of Iowans, selling them this bill of goods that is based in fantasy, not facts, and not at all providing for the health and well-being of Iowans. And when the physicians and regular people try to push back, they're completely sidelined. I just don't get it.
They are honestly people who deserve to be run out of office. I mean, there should be such an outcry that essentially demands their resignation for such inaccuracies and for literally politicizing healthcare. And that's how you get to decisions like kicking people off of Medicaid, how you get people like, again, Congressman Derek Van Orden saying the other day that, people are lying if they say that people are going to have their Medicaid benefits cut. Let's again make clear, Congressman Van Orden and everybody else, you show us all of the fraud and abuse. Don't just say it. Don't just say there's fraud and abuse. Don't just say that there's undocumented immigrants get it. Prove it. Doge cuts, again, prove it. Prove it. Waste, fraud, and abuse are illegal. Fraud is illegal. Show me the charges. And then we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But right now, this is all propaganda. This is all lies. And it's all going to be called out so that folks next year and in every election beyond look past the political ads and the talking points and deal with who is dealing with fact and who is dealing with fiction. And that's what we have to put up with here, Selena.
So I was in Iowa on Monday, and I shot a story in Iowa and talking about waste, fraud, and abuse. And that's kind of the key term from the state auditor in Iowa about the school voucher program, because the state voucher program cannot be audited in the state of Iowa. And so I was in Iowa in front of a private school talking about this, and I was looking around and I thought, oh gosh, I hope I don't get in trouble here, because I'm talking about this program that does not. They made it so the auditor cannot audit voucher program, and the eligibility now for this next school year to participate in the voucher program is lifted, so anybody can get.
Go ahead, Krista.
And that's the next level, that you're standing in front of a school trying to tell a story about how people are being duped, and you're afraid to tell the story because you're going to get in trouble. So it's the lies, it's the fear, it's the division. Like, enough already. We've got to have the courage as people, as humans, to come together and stand up for what is right and what is true.
And I'm just going to say the lead part again, because we made that transition from, human growth and development to Medicaid to this story that I was editing of yours, Selena, on the drive home yesterday, that the voucher school program, again, in Iowa, was specifically written so that the state auditor could not audit the use of tax dollars for the voucher program. Why did they do that? Because the state auditor is a Democrat. The only Democratic state official is the auditor, the watchdog of taxpayer dollars. And Republicans specifically wrote the voucher law so that millions upon millions upon millions of tax dollars could go there for teachers. How did you put it? They could use it for like a vacation. They could send a teacher to Paris for
Europe. Leather furniture, he said, they could put in the teacher's lounge. Nobody knows. Nobody knows
because the state auditor isn't allowed to audit it. That's where we are. Again, this should be, if this went the other way, I mean, there would be torches and pitchforks out there if Democrats wrote a law like this, that the one Republican auditor couldn't audit it. This is where we are at this point, and it needs to be called out relentlessly, and that's why you're hearing us be so relentless about it. On the other side of the break, Selena Heller's back with us on many of these Civic Media Radio Network stations to talk about Senator Tammy Baldwin and a recent event and a local dairy farmer advocating speaking out for yourself in this day and age. You got to. In this day and age, the way things are going. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
Are you kidding me with the Milwaukee Brewers here? 7 games in a row and sweeping the Philadelphia Phillies in Philadelphia.
Did you see the score on Saturday?
Yes, I did. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of points.
Oh my goodness! It was that kind of a weekend. There were some big lopsided wins throughout the weekend in baseball, and I just want to make 17-7, 17-7.
Yeah.
It was a
Wow.
football score. Packers over the Eagles on Saturday. But it was the Brewers instead. And so after sweeping 3 in Philly, they are now on their way to Cincinnati. Coverage begins this evening at 5:35 across stations on the Civic Media Radio Network for 3 against Cincinnati. And then the Brewers are back home. Thursday's an off day. And let's see, what begins next is a 10-game homestand starting with San Diego. They'll be playing the Padres Friday and Saturday evenings, and then Sunday afternoon, followed by 3 against Atlanta, followed by 4 against the St. Louis Cardinals, coming to American Family Field. So the Brewers I think I'm going to say it this way, because I said last week, they're going to Philadelphia. I don't know. It's going to be tough. And then they sweep the Phillies. So
In Philly.
yeah. So I'm going to say, oh gosh, Brewers, I don't know. 3 in Cincinnati. We'll see. So there you go. The onus is on you guys now. Selena, Senator Tammy Baldwin came to the Chippewa Valley the other day, appeared at a local farm to talk about the budget that has been passed out of the House, is sitting in the Senate, where it's no doubt going to get modified in some way, shape, or form. Maybe in big ways, depending on how some of these votes come down. What did Senator Baldwin have to say about that?
Yeah, she said they reconvene today, so that starts back up and it'll get changed around a lot. She said, some of her colleagues have differing opinions, and so this is Senator Baldwin at the Peck family farm in Chippewa Falls, where we took a tour of the whole entire farm and the barns and saw all the cows, and just talked to Jeff Peck, and we'll hear from him in a second. But we got to talk a lot to farmers about what was going on. But she talks about the farm bill here.
All right, here's Tammy
Or not
Baldwin.
the farm bill, the budget bill.
Yes, here's Senator Baldwin.
I think it has a tough road ahead of it. I will tell you that I have some of my Republican colleagues who are going to join Democrats in opposing it because they think that the cuts to the most vulnerable are too steep and will hurt their constituents in their largely rural states. And then I have other Republican colleagues who have announced that the cuts don't go far enough, that they won't pass a tax measure unless it's fully paid for. And so right now there's more no's in the Senate than there are yeses. But what sort of changes we might make and send it back to the House, or whether we reject it in its entirety and say, let's start over, it remains to be seen.
So there's Senator Baldwin talking about a bill that its future is uncertain because, once again, inside Republican caucuses, first the House and now the Senate, they can't agree amongst themselves, Selena, that the bill cuts too much or it cuts too little.
Well, yeah, and there are things like, the SNAP program, Medicaid, of course, all of those things, and at the same time, there's so many things going on with agriculture. So after we toured the farm, we talked to Tammy, and when I think of farmers, my dad, I grew up on a farm, and they're kind of a quiet bunch. Sometimes my dad had really strong opinions, but they tend not to, be too outspoken in front of everybody. So
Right.
Jeff Peck on the farm there was kind of advocating for farmers and everybody kind of who has thoughts about anything.
Here's Jeff Peck.
A lot of people don't feel like they should be the voice of their business or of agriculture. And it really is. I just met with United States Senator Tammy Baldwin, and we just had a conversation. She was just a normal person. She was happy to just walk around the farm. And we were in my shop. We were with my calves. We were outside my parlor. We were looking at my feed piles. Just everyday conversation. So people can do it. They can speak up for themselves. And it's one of those things, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And so those people that just don't think it's for them, don't be afraid of the microphone.
And to that end, again, Senator Baldwin being on the farm there, Kristen, contrast that with what Senator Ron Johnson had to say the other day in Milwaukee about he's not aware of any poor people who ever created a job. Let's start with farmers who aren't well-to-do and who create jobs. Let's just start there.
That's the foundation of our economy here in Wisconsin is
Mhm.
agriculture, is farmers who create jobs. So I don't know what Senator Johnson is saying, but I do have to say there's one place where I agree with Senator Johnson, and that is I'm very concerned about this budget and how it increases the deficit, because the more we increase the deficit and we fail to meet our obligations, the more we undermine the economic stability of the entire country, not just right now, but well into the future.
And so for those folks who are like, oh yeah, suddenly the liberals are concerned about the debt and the deficit, that's always been there. You can take care of that with a tax system that is, fair, that does not let billionaires pay a lower tax rate than a farmer.
This is a reverse Robin Hood situation.
Yes.
We are literally taking from the poor and giving to the rich, and then we're selling back to the poor this propaganda, these Baby Olivia videos, these ridiculous statements that are coming out of politicians' mouths about not cutting SNAP and not cutting Medicaid. It's lies, it's propaganda. It's hurting us now, and it's going to hurt us a lot down the road.
Along the way, we're going to be talking to Jimmie Kaska. We're going to get into name, image, and licensing and other things in sports coming up. But first, we send Dr. Kristen Lyerly on her way. Catch your show weekends over in Oshkosh and Green Bay and on the Civic Media website. And Selena Heller reports for us at Up North News. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com. Selena, Kristen, thank you as always for starting the week so nice for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Happy June.
Happy June, everybody. All right. So, again, Jimmie Kaska on the way. We'll be talking a little bit of sports, name and image licensing, and he might have a thing or two to say about the Brewers and this crazy 7-game win, sweeping the Phils. This is outstanding. Let's keep this up. Jimmie's up next. I'm Pat Kreitlow. You're up north. Welcome back at 7:35. You can get our daily newsletter. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com. Click subscribe in the top banner. Today in our daily newsletter from Christina Laurie, the many ways Wisconsin has been a trailblazer in the equality movement as part of Pride Month for the LGBTQ community. And in our weekend newsletter, Sunday mornings with Pat Kreitlow, our question of the week deals with the state budget. And folks who were in the Capitol last week making the case to Governor Tony Evers that if the state budget bill sent to him by Republicans doesn't meet a certain threshold of support for things like public education and natural resources and health care, that instead of trying to fix it with partial vetoes, he should just veto the whole thing and make the legislature start over. What's your point of view? Should the governor do that to make a statement? Should he just continue to use partial vetoes? Maybe you think whatever the Republican legislators will send to him will be the best thing and that he should just sign the bill without any partial vetoes. Anyway, that's in our weekly newsletter, and you can sign up for that as well. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com and click subscribe up in the top banner there. Coming up across the Civic Media Radio Network a little bit later on the Todd Alba Show today, coming up at 2:30, State Senator Kelda Roys will be joining Todd. She's a member of the Joint Finance Committee. At 3 o'clock, Todd is joined by Tom Kircher, reporter with Wisconsin Watch. On the Maggie Dawn Show, starting at 4 o'clock, Matt Rothschild will be the guest co-host, and they will have Senator LaTanya Johnson, the other Democratic member of the Joint Finance Committee, the ranking member for the Senate there, coming on. Again, it looks to be in the 4 o'clock hour, coming up across the Civic Media Radio Network. We want to talk now a bit about what's happening in high school sports, and we'll get into some other areas as well, but especially this whole notion of NIL deals, name, image, license deals. And for that, we bring in Civic Media's own sports director, Jimmie Kaska. Jimmie, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pat. Great to be here. I always love being on a show called Up North, because that's home for me. From the Chippewa Valley, born and raised. So I always appreciate coming on this program specifically.
Well, we love having you up north. So thank you very much for doing that. Let's see. Ahead of name, image, license, let's just talk about high school sports overall in Wisconsin. It is June 2nd. Where are we in terms of spring sports? Are they wrapping up? Have they wrapped up?
We are into really the tail end of the season. The high school sports season has 3 weeks to go in the spring. So this week, I think the crown jewel of spring sports, in my opinion, is much like in winter, how it's individual wrestling in terms of just the sheer number of schools represented. State track is this week. So many schools can get individuals or relays into the state track event at UW La Crosse, which is a wonderful, wonderful venue for any sporting event, but particularly state track, where they've hosted this for a number of years. And you get to go and you get to see over 200 school communities represented in this event. To me, it's one of those uniquely cool things about high school sports in Wisconsin. I really enjoy covering these events. We still have softball, we still have baseball, we have soccer, there's golf, there's tennis. There's still a lot of other state events going on, but state track is so awesome to just be able to see all the schools. Baseball and softball, all these other events, they've got great facilities and great events too. So regardless, the next 3 weeks are going to be pretty fun for high school sports in Wisconsin.
It's rather infectious to hear you talk about it. It's just the all the participation, and again, it's a wide net. It's not like just a handful of powerhouse teams. There's something for everybody in there.
Exactly. And even a community like the one I live in, small towns are getting, I think just here in the town I live in, I think we have 6 athletes going, but so many towns, maybe it's just one. You have one person who's doing really well in the high jump or something, and they go to state. You could still get an entire community rally around just a handful of student athletes, and I just think that's a really cool feature to, whether it's wrestling, whether it's track, or any individual sport that gets to go to state. It is a really, really neat experience to see, a whole town, come out for maybe just a handful of kids. It's awesome.
That's great. And let's see, Tony mentions up on YouTube here, he says track meets are fun. He also says back in 1902, Pat won the 125 weight class in wrestling. Everyone forgets about that. 1902 probably was the last time I weighed 125 pounds, now that I think about it here. Jimmie, let's turn then to the policies that surround high school sports and these NIL deals, name, image licensing, which, is that just a fancy way of saying endorsement deals?
So in Wisconsin, name, image, and likeness was part of a package of 4 policies that were put in the WIAA Constitution for this year. I think it's the one getting the most attention because of how it's affected college sports, right? In college, it has really turned things on its head to the point where, even in the last couple of weeks, we've seen lawsuits and legislation and all kinds of things come out about name, image, likeness, equality between and inequality really between the power programs and the other programs. There's a lot of things happening in college sports as a result of name, image, and likeness that I think for a lot of people, especially people who are a little more traditionalist in the sense of amateur athletics, are not too happy about where things have gone and how it's really upended conference alignments and things like that. But here's the good news for those of you who are following high school sports and wondering, is name, image, likeness going to affect high school sports the same way it has college? And the short answer is no. And I'm saying that because, first of all, Wisconsin was one of the last states to even get NIL. I think there's only maybe 7 or 8 states left that don't have it. And the fact that we got it done through our state association and our school membership, that's a big win for us, because in places where this hasn't gone in yet, it's been left up to state legislatures, and having politics at that level involved in high school athletics can really be a negative, because then there's no control over the school memberships and state associations to deal with the issues that they have in front of them. In high school NIL, things are much more restrictive than they are in college NIL, so you're not going to see the average student athlete in high school, getting a car dealership endorsement and rolling around in a, $80,000 car or anything like that. You're just not going to see that happen at large. Maybe it happens for a couple of kids, which is great for them, but it's not happening for every kid in the state. There's a lot of guardrails to how it's done in Wisconsin, Pat, and I think that is one of the reasons why it passed this time after failing a year ago.
What would a typical NIL deal look like? Not necessarily for the star of the football team, but maybe there's somebody else. Are they essentially just now doing endorsements for a local sporting goods store or something like that?
One of the reasons why in Wisconsin I don't see this affecting nearly as much as as it has in college is that the guardrails the WIAA membership put in place are going to really restrict who can do this. So there's 2 different big restrictions on this, in addition to not being able to represent, your school, your conference, the WIAA in any kind of NIL deal. So you can't just put on your jersey and go say, hey, I'm the quarterback for XYZ high school. You can't do that. But there are two really big restrictions on where the money comes from, and one of those restrictions is on the who can do that, and that is that if you're a coach, if you're a staff member, if you're a parent of another student athlete in a school, it sounds really obvious, but you're not allowed to contribute to NIL deals. If you're a coach or a former coach of a student athlete or a program in that school, you can't act as an agent. High school student athletes can't sign agents and find deals that way. But the other one, and I think this is the big one, is that if you're a business organization, you're an employee at these places that has contributed to maybe a school's booster fund, you've donated to a school program before, anything like that, any kind of contribution. And Pat, in small towns, how businesses show up to support their student athletes in their communities. How they support those things. Those businesses, organizations, and the employees of those places, they are not allowed to contribute to NIL deals. So it really restricts the pool of potential name, image, and likeness endorsements. It's really limited to people that have never contributed to a school program before. And again, when you're talking about a lot of places in Wisconsin, whether it's a college town, whether it's a small farm town, pretty much every business has had a hand in something, whether it's donating $100 to put up a scoreboard or support the annual fundraiser for each team.
But with all those restrictions, I feel like I have to come back to my root question, which is, so what would an NIL deal look like if all the usual suspects can't be part of it? If you can't wear your team's uniform or in any other way? I mean, now you're left with the high school volleyball player just in jeans and a t-shirt doing a deal for somebody that's never done a deal with their local high school teams before. Does that almost sound too restrictive? Like, what kind of an NIL deal do you even get out of something like that?
There's a couple of things. One is that you can use it to promote maybe an event you're part of in town, like if there's a local event or something. As long as you're not promoting something that's without listing 50 things, adult oriented, so you can't be endorsing like alcohol, right? As a high school student athlete, things like that. Events like that. You put your name on something that doesn't touch any of those areas. That's probably fine. There's a whole list of rules and regulations for a big FAQ on it. The other one is, I think the big one is that there's going to be it's going to sound like a big word, but NIL collective. So these are going to be groups of and the WIAA has an official one for this, where they do go out and find certain deals for student athletes to endorse and help build their brand and marketing. So there are going to be pools of organizations and businesses that will get to do this, and then obviously the one the businesses that aren't already supporting high school athletics or high school programs in general, those would be ones too. An NIL deal I think it would look like a normal endorsement deal. I mean, there's only been, I think, 2 reported contracts so far, and one of them was literally just endorsing certain events held in their town. So I think that's where it's going to probably look like. It's not going to look like these big mega deals where a student athlete on a college roster is worth $4.6 million in endorsements or whatever. It's just not going to be that way for high school kids, because there's a lot more high school student athletes and there's a lot more communities, and there's not quite that big well of financial support to draw from.
Well, I'm looking at this New York Times headline from last week. Can this 14-year-old football star become a high school millionaire? And the story begins, Brittany Coleman's son, Caden, had just turned 10 when youth football coaches started pressing envelopes with thousands of dollars into her hand. They wanted Caden to play for their club team in Maryland or New Jersey or other states, and she always refused because those payments aren't allowed. But now, because of new NIL deals, students as young as middle school could go on. This is, though, so the exception rather than what NIL deals are going to look like, you're saying?
Yeah, and it's going to really affect a very small handful of high school student athletes in Wisconsin. And we've seen it because, like I said, Wisconsin's one of the last states to get NIL. It's that way in a lot of the other states. There are very few states where it's wide open NIL. I think it's like 2 or 3. And even those, after they started, they were kind of the first ones in it. Even after they started, they really started restricting it, much like Wisconsin has. Wisconsin's isn't even the most restrictive, according to the people who are putting together the policy discussions. It is pretty restrictive, but you're just not going to see that. And to that point, if you're, it's specifically banned that if you're trying to recruit a student athlete or keep them at a school, whether you're moving or keeping them, if you're recruiting a student athlete, that's banned. And by banned, it just means that student athlete risks becoming ineligible if they do accept those kind of deals for that reason.
Tell you what, though, you mentioned the one word in all of that scares me, and that's the legislature. If the legislature now, if they know they could have this to start with, Lord only knows how they could interfere one way or another and make things even worse here. Jimmie Kaska is with us, and we'll talk about that Brewers 7-game win streak, sweeping the Phils in Philadelphia. It's break up the Brewers. That's it. I mean, World Series inevitable, right? Okay, no, they got the rest of the season to play. I'm Pat Kreitlow. You're listening to the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
The Scotty Summer Text to Win contest from Civic Media is underway, and 4 times a day you can either win $100 cash or a pair of Brewers Club level tickets, and each entry gives you a chance at one of the grand prize drawings for a Wisconsin Dells vacation in Baraboo at the Ringling House Bed and Breakfast or the Door County White Lace Inn. Some gas money to get you there as well. And this hour's keyword is new, N-E-W. And this hour's prize is $100. So use that Civic Media app, text in the word new, N-E-W, in the next 6 minutes here, and you'll be part of the, you'll be in the running for $100 this hour and the grand prize drawing overall. We're talking to Civic Media Sports Director Jimmie Kaska about, well, first we were talking name, image, licensing deals. Now we're getting into the usual weekend sports, which we will be doing at this time every week now on Monday mornings, looking back at the weekend. And Jimmie, sweeping the Phils. I mean, that was not on my bingo card for this weekend at all.
No, the Brewers they have their longest win streak in 2 years. They knocked down what was the first place team in the National League, and much more importantly for the Brewers, looking in their own house, they're now just a game and a half out in the wild card, and they set up an absolutely vital series with the Reds now that starts today. This was needed. As unexpected as it was needed to get the Brewers at least a few games above 500 and really get them back into kind of the playoff hunt. Because now, being a game and a half out of the wild card, everything's on the table now for Milwaukee going forward.
Well, and it was, again, when the weekend started, they were at a 4-game win streak that I said got them back to 500 because they'd been, bobbing along that whole time thinking, well, 500 is not really going to get it done here. And so, yes, you're right. They give themselves this nice cushion. They head into the series with Cincinnati, and then they don't have division games again until almost a week later, Thursday of next week, a 4-game series against the Cardinals. So, I mean, they can really do themselves a lot of good tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, the Reds are the team right behind them in the standings for the wild card, and then with St. Louis coming up, that's a team they're chasing in the wild card. So for Milwaukee, this is a really vital stretch of the year. I know it's June, and it's tough to talk about how this impacts playoff positioning and stuff because there's a lot of season to go. But you can certainly play your way out of contention by this point. And really, if the Brewers are right there, they're within a game or two of a playoff spot. It's going to change what they do next month when they get close to the trade deadline too, because you're thinking for a bit when they're falling behind 500, they're a few games out of it. Like you're thinking, what are they going to trade off and bring in? With their farm system doing as well as it has been the last few years, like what are they going to do strategically long term? But now you're starting to see it turn a little bit. The offense found some life. The 17 runs on Saturday, man, that was pretty awesome, wasn't it?
Yes.
So yeah, Milwaukee's certainly finding some pieces right now.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, again, you for a small market team, you can't catch a break. The day that we score 17 runs is the same day that the Dodgers put up 18 runs on the Yankees or something like that over the weekend.
Yeah, the way it's done, it's a little piecemeal when you're a small market team. But yeah, for sure, it's good to see when these things happen. And obviously, having this win streak at this time, it's coming at a great time because you're turning the page to June. You're a third of the way through the season, and now you're back in contention. It's all good things.
And Tony asking on YouTube, will they sell, buy, or hold steady at the deadline? Which, until you brought it up 2 minutes ago, I wasn't even thinking about the trade deadline. And yeah, this makes a big difference.
It really does, because now you're in contention, so you're not selling at this point because you're a game and a half out of a playoff spot. That's nothing. I mean, that's over the course of the next few months. Like, anything can really happen with that, right? So there's no selling at this point. Now, buying is a little different because the Brewers have moved a lot of their top prospects up to the major leagues, especially their pitching prospects. So I don't know how much you can acquire at this point based on all the prospects that are now sort of major league ready or already in the major leagues. That's a little bit different for them because in past years they've had such a deep farm system, be able to move around a little bit. And there's also the fact that their payroll is pretty light. So, they're not going to probably break the bank to make any kind of big blockbuster trade this year to become, playoff, contender, like true playoff contenders where they're a lock for it. I think you're probably closer to hold steady, right? Because you're in contention, but there's not a lot of moves to be made. I think like every team they could use pitching, right? I think that's true, but the Brewers are weirdly this year too could also use a little little bit in the way of hitting. So it remains to be seen, but at least we don't see them as sellers, right? Because they're so close.
No, and they're starting to pick up some steam with the whole runners in scoring position where the bats had been strangely silent as of late. Now, Christian Yelich got hit on the hand by a pitch in yesterday's game, had to leave the game. X-rays were negative, so everything's day-to-day with this guy, right?
Yeah, and for him, it's been really nice to see here in the early part of the year where you have a lot of money invested in him and part of your lineup, part of your payroll. There's a lot invested in him, so as he goes, it really helps with what they're trying to do with Milwaukee and all the things that they're doing as just as an organization, right? Being one of just a handful of guys with 10 home runs and 10 steals to start the year, he's been a big part of the Brewers' early success. So losing him for any extended period of time would hurt him more than you'd think, even though he's struggled the last couple of years a bit. He's having a good year this year, objectively. Again, over 10 home runs and over 10 steals already. I think it's right around a dozen guys who could say that in the first 2 months. So he's been a big part of things.
And then finally, the NHL and NBA seasons are in their final stages. The finals beginning for the NBA on Thursday. It's the Indiana Pacers against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Network executives everywhere going, well, there's my worst nightmare. But
that's what I was going to say. Two small market teams, but well, you look at the superstars. You've got Oshkosh own Tyrese Halliburton, and then you've got SGA for Oklahoma City. I think it's a fascinating series. It should be a lot of fun to watch.
And in the NHL, you of course have the Edmonton Oilers representing Canada and pretty much all the rest of the U.S. that doesn't want to root for Florida against the Florida Panthers in a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup.
Yep, and this year, like every year in hockey, it's who survives the playoff gauntlet. Stanley Cup is so much fun to watch. Two teams that are pretty evenly matched, had pretty similar goal differentials during the year. I think both finals set up really well. It should be a lot of good entertainment if you're following those finals in both sports.
Jimmie Kaska, thank you so much. As always, we'll see you next Monday.
Talk to you next Monday, Pat.
All right. Thank you, sir. Remember, you can follow my team from Up North News all day long through our newsletters, social media, and our website. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com. And, of course, right here, mornings on the Civic Media Radio Network. More in our next hour. I'm Pat Kreitlow. The news is next.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.